Welcome to the Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community, a space where justice meets action and community voices rise. Each episode, we bring you stories from the front lines, changemakers, disruptors, and everyday heroes who are building a more just, equitable, and liberated world. This is more than a podcast. It's a call to listen, learn, and move together. You were just listening to music from the incredibly talented Stephen Kong. You can find him on Spotify and Bandcamp. Today we have with us David Deighton. David is the creator of Triptych Dialogue, an art experiment in bridging societal divides with in-person communication with strangers. David uses art installations where thousands of visitors have discovered his work in unlikely venues, such as national park free speech areas or even on top of a mountain. Well, hi, David. I'm really excited and grateful to have you here today. I think that art and activism, is such an important connection. And, I love how you also want to create more unity and connections with folks. And I'm excited about this conversation. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's great being on your program. I'm looking forward to this.
Okay.
I've been looking forward to this. This is cool.
No, me too. But
Yeah.
just to start off, can you share the story of how Triptych Dialogue began? So what sparked your desire to create an art experiment centered on bridging divides?
Right. So, well, it started out, as a political activist, I've always been putting my art out there, kind of in your face without any feedback. It's like you look at it, like it or not. And then when I found 6 years ago, after January 6th and all this stuff and happened, there's no way that this is going to happen if we're not going to be able to connect with one another. Our communities are going to fall apart if we don't start connecting in person. So I took the step of no longer becoming not being an anonymous artist anymore, but coming out and just being there for the public and interacting with them. And it's been really transformational because there's a lot less anger in my life right now because that's where it takes you. But it didn't start out that way.
Yeah. No, that's really beautiful. And can you share, have you always used art as a form of activism, or when did you start seeing that? Is something like art something that showed up to even when you were a young child?
Yes. Yeah. Well, as a young child, as activism, maybe not so much, but as a way of expression of what was going on, is how I express things, and kind of off from the periphery of things rather than straight on seeing variations of things. Also, I'm from France. I grew up in France, and I live in the U.S. I've always been between these two cultures, and I've seen the issues of echo chambers and points of view that are different from one place to the other. That's very much part of my world, and that applies, I've noticed, also to every single one of us, regardless of our backgrounds. And I'm interested in how it's possible for us to communicate with others and explore each other's echo chambers, or just to recognize that we have one. And how do do people let you in, or how do you explore, and all these things. And I find that to be a solution, and also be a very just full of life, and just super interesting. It's like traveling in your own backyard. You can travel the world, and there's tons of people to discover, and to share with. Everybody has. It's hard to get in people's head. Not that we should. Why should we? It's interesting.
No, I really love that a lot. And that's something that I strive to do too. I feel like there's a lot more that unites us versus divides us. And I think we have to get past this hateful rhetoric, or putting labels on people, or stigmatizing folks. And because I think, I don't know, even on podcast, I feel people have just been talking about love and unity, wanting to see more of that in the world. And I feel with this, I don't know how you feel, but I feel with this current political climate, there's so much demonization, I feel from the right of the left of, the left is really radical and just wants to tear down things. And, we hate everything. But no, it's just I would say a lot of my guests have been more progressive and like, or even like their love that they're putting out, I think it totally dismantles all these stereotypes that people have of what it means to be liberal or progressive.
Mm. But I gotta say that before I was certainly um, I was very divisive in all of my
Okay.
artwork, right? But I've come to a point where I could no longer. I found that being on digital devices and doing artwork in digital art and things like this
Yeah.
was not definitely not a way to go because the algorithm pulls you and keeps you in your echo chamber and you're unable to go speak to different groups, right? It's
Right.
very controlling, and that's one of the reasons I came to do in-person work. And that means that an example, for example, is that I go to national parks and I set up an art installation into free speech areas, and I engage with strangers and I ask them about a taboo subject, one that
Mm.
we're not supposed to talk about, and it's I talk about politics. I ask them to talk about politics, to
Yeah.
speak with me about politics, and but I do something, and it's never confrontational because I use active listening.
Yeah.
I just listen to what they have to say. And I can tell you, like 6 years ago, when I started this last project, this Triptych Dialogue project, I got triggered all the time because if you go to the
Mm.
Grand Canyon or Yellowstone or something, everybody goes there. So you
Yeah.
get all the different opinions, and there's facts and opinions that I wouldn't agree with. Opinions, that's one thing, but facts, I was like, that's wrong. But
Right.
you try to keep it quiet, but you're unable to listen to the other person at that point. So I found over time that I had to focus, let that go, and find a
Mm.
way. And I focus now just on emotions. So
Yeah.
if somebody that has these ultra right points of view
Yeah.
that are opposing to mine, they might be angry about something or frustrated about the state of affairs or something, and I'll catch on to that and I'll share that with them. I'll say, you know what, I disagree with everything you said, but I'm
Yeah.
frustrated too. And I'm that libtard that you just called out or whatever you called out. I'm
Yeah.
that person. And
Yeah.
you may never have met one. And here we are, but we disagree about certain things. But we have, and so on an emotional level, we can connect. And in
Yeah.
face to face, I never had, out of the hundreds of encounters, I never had a confrontational one or aggressive one, which
Yeah.
is
No, I really
weird
love
because I
that.
never thought that would have been the case, right? That's what transformed me. I was like
Yeah.
ready for a fight, but and like 500 500 interactions, nobody ever had,
No, that
which
sounds
is weird.
beautiful. No, and I
Mm,
feel like it goes to your point. Like I feel like we just need to listen to each other because I think it's healthy to have like conflict or disagreement sometimes, but I feel like where things are at right now, it's like an unhealthy way, even like name calling and all that. But I feel like, just if we could talk to each other and actually listen, I think there's a lot of like productive like conversations that we could have with one another.
yeah, for sure. And the thing is, like, where do you, for me, it was like, where do you find these where do you
Yeah.
find these conversations? How do we have our social groups, and online it's one thing, so we can't exit that one. Um, but in person, like, where is that? Where does that manifest itself physically? Where does that happen? People go to their churches. They're not supposed to talk about politics at work. They have their friend groups or whatever, so they stick in there. But on the other side, you don't get a chance to have those conversations unless you start talking to strangers and going straight for like what you're not supposed to talk about, right? The one that everybody's avoiding these days is talk about politics. And so I go straight for that. But of course, I'm asking questions. They're always the same questions. And I'm listening, which is the big difference. And then they feel safe about, of letting it out.
Yeah.
And at least you're doing that, right? I feel like that's my activism. It's like at least they get a space to get started. And even if I don't get to tell them what I'm thinking, that's okay. I don't care
Yeah.
anymore.
No, thank you for sharing that. I'd
Mm,
love to further explore that with you too. So,
mm.
when did you first become aware of the growing disconnect or polarization in our society? And how did that awareness help to shape your work?
Oh, for me, it was like growing up in Paris as a kid. I listened to the shortwave radio. I could listen to the Soviet Union and TASS radio, and then there was Voice of America with their propaganda arm, and I'd hear two different stories on the same day for the same thing. You know, the only thing was like weather. One would say, "Oh, weather in Israel is like this," and the other one was in Odessa, like in Ukraine, like whatever. That was, they both had the weather report, and the music was different. But when it came to a news report, it was like two different sides of the story. And then of course, growing up in France, we have a whole array of the whole political spectrum is available, unlike in the US, which is so far to the right that being on the left is like being center right in France, and which is hard for some people to grasp. We're so close to fascism in the US that
Right.
we don't even see it. Where the center is far to the right for a lot of other countries. So yeah, it's been there with me for a long time. The polarizations happen through early radio programs in the 80s with Rush Limbaugh and all that stuff, and just been building up, and Fox News, and then now we have anything on. For example, I'll give you an example. Right, I did this 1 year experiment before I started this in-person thing, and I went online. I joined Instagram for a 1 year. Every day I was going to put up an abstract video, right? And it was
Wow.
going to be about misinformation, disinformation, and political polarization, while
Okay.
looking at Plato's allegory of the cave and complicated, just interwoven, confusing stuff. But every day I'd put up a video, and then I would reach out to different groups, like, and I would troll, well, not necessarily trolling, but I would join into alt-right groups and see
Okay.
all the memes and see how that would change, and try to have conversations within there, and everything came out of all different of all kind was coming my way. Um, but I found myself then banned, like you get shadow banned. They don't even tell you, like the platform blocks you, and you have no longer, you can see your account, but you can't
Oh,
change or
okay.
add any more to it. And the first time it's like 3 days. And then it happened again. It was like a week, and then it got half a dozen times to up like to 2 months or something. So they punish you for how you act
Yeah.
online, but they don't give you. But I think that's what was happening, because I never got an email or anything, but it was what was
Okay.
going on, and that's one of the reasons I decided I had to go in person, because online
Yeah.
it doesn't work, right? We can't have healthy conversations online, because the
Yeah.
algorithm stops us from speaking to people on the other side, and
Yeah.
then people have the curtain, right? That they feel safe of saying all these hateful things, whereas in person,
Yeah.
not so
No,
much.
I
Mm,
don't know. I get
go
really
for it.
frustrated with that too. Like I feel like some people troll just to troll and they say like, yeah, really outrageous things. Like I sometimes like, do you know that you're actually saying this to like another human being? But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, I agree
and they
with you
love
too.
it. They love it,
Yeah,
right? They
no,
thrive on it,
totally.
right?
Totally.
Right. And so they have a perfect platform for themselves too. When you do it, when it's in person, I'm just asking the questions and just
Yeah.
listening. It really puts people off.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
especially when they want to they want to trigger me and say things, and use words that would probably get 99% of the people going. I try to stay neutral at that
Okay.
very moment, right? Which is hard, but that didn't start that way.
Yeah.
My earlier interactions was hard to
Yeah.
keep it in.
Oh no. Well, yeah, no. Thank you. Yeah.
You
Um,
know what I mean, right? It's yeah, yeah.
yeah.
You had to. I didn't realize how much courage it would take from me
Yeah.
to shut up and listen and talk to people.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful that what you do though. And you're starting like these conversations because, who knows, maybe the people who you talk to usually just dismiss people too, but you actually having that open conversation, maybe you're helping to like have them learn from a different perspective as well.
Yeah, that's true. At the end, like
Yeah.
I'll ask these three non-confrontational questions and all that
Hmm.
stuff, but then I'll invite the public or the person I was speaking to use those same questions
Okay.
and use them with strangers, because usually it's easier to talk to strangers than it is with the ultimate
Yeah.
goal is to talk to your family members, the ones you no longer speak to,
Hmm.
right? Because it happens. I've had people cry because they're no longer like a mom that's no longer talking with her son because
Yeah.
her son voted for Trump, and they can't talk about anything anymore. And so they're crying because it's the first time somebody's asked them like these taboo subjects, and they're letting it out. And so they can use these and have the excuse. The story is like they met, they've listened to this podcast, or they
Yeah.
met me at a thing, or they've done one of these, like, where you sit down at a dinner table with how they set up with different political
Mhm.
parties and they come together. All those are like story building events that you may not have been participating in, but you can try out and use it as an excuse to start a conversation, like the basis, the foundation.
Yeah.
The whole system can't stop us from having
Yeah.
these conversations. And I
No, I
think
love that.
it's very it's super powerful.
Yeah.
I tell it to people, especially when they say, I don't want to vote. Like, I don't want to vote, it doesn't matter. It's like, well, what does matter to you? And then
Yeah.
they still agree that we should have these conversations, and they go on and do them. And I find that, okay, you can't vote, but you can do the conversation. Good.
Yeah.
Go do that. Hopefully someday you will.
Yeah.
Or
No, that's
not. I don't know.
wonderful. No, I love that you do that. And I know you talked about this a little before, but I'd love to further explore it. So, you describe your work as bridging societal divides through in-person communication with strangers. So what do you think makes art such a powerful medium for this kind of work?
Well, it's like, yeah, the very first thing, right? I come from the periphery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, if you look online at how to depolarize, and you can find, from the European Union, from the US, they have long explanations of checking facts and all that. It's very time consuming, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a mini college degree. It's not for everyone, right? But art can offer, like, right on the moment, just like an epiphany, like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
right. This, yeah, I get this, right? Or not. Most of the time, not is like, this is totally weird. I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But for some people, it has a deep connection, and it allows the next step, which is action, and and that happens, and that's my motivator to do
Yeah.
this in my spare time. This is what I do in my spare time. I do this stuff, and yeah, it's super powerful stuff. Um, I'll try different things out just for the fun of it. I'll set up different art installations with, maybe be like two chairs with one says Democrat and one says Republican. They're empty chairs.
Okay.
And some people get it. They're like, well, these chairs are empty. Oh, it's because they don't speak to one another. And then
Yeah.
some people are like, oh, I should go down and sit down in these chairs. Maybe we
Okay.
could try it out, and I'll be there to mediate it and use like questions and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, I use repurposed books, an art stand, all these different types of installations that I set up, that prompt people
Mm.
to thought, and hopefully then action afterwards, but always on the same subject. So there's different ways of approaching it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's getting out of our bubble. I mean, this is scary. Getting out of our
Yeah.
bubble to talk to a stranger about something we're not supposed to talk about. But I see it no other way for us to get. I mean, for me personally, to um, to stop us from falling off this cliff that we're getting pushed off of, right?
Yeah.
I want to bridge. It's all about bridging. Apparently, there's a thing called a bridging movement out there. So it's all
Okay.
these people doing different activities.
Yeah.
Sort of a few podcasts. They said, "Oh, you're a bridger." And I was like, "Okay,
Oh,
yeah."
that's cool. I
And you
didn't
are,
know that.
but you are too.
Okay.
You see, in a sense, that's what you're doing. We're all like bridges because we're creating bridges through
Yeah.
dialogue, conversation, creating platforms for all these things to happen.
Yeah.
And we don't have to do anything as big as what you're doing. We can do that just in a single conversation,
Right.
right?
No,
Yeah, and
totally.
that's what's cool, right? There's a lot of political actions we can do every day when the occasion arises.
Yeah.
That because we feel powerless because all we got are petitions and little clicks and things to do,
Yeah.
and for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So there's more we can do that's powerful out there and that has an effect. And just that one conversation, right? It affects
Right.
it has ramifications all the way through. They're going to be talking about it with other people,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
No, I love that. Actually, that's something
Mm.
that I want to do with this podcast too, show people that, like, anyone can make a difference in this community,
Mm.
and maybe hopefully even translate into the larger world. And, I think a lot of times people might feel like overwhelmed or like, oh, there's so much going on, so I'm just not going to do anything. But, I think like even as simple as like picking up trash that you see on the ground or just doing a small act of kindness. So, what would you say to someone who like wants to make a difference but just doesn't even know how to take that first step and, start making a difference in their communities or yeah,
But
maybe larger world. Hmm.
that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's taking that step, that kind of scary step. You take baby steps. That's why it's
Yeah.
talking, in my case, talking with strangers is easier than trying to reconcile with family members or former friends on a
Hmm.
subject as divisive as politics. It's not to convince them of your ways or anything. It's just
Yeah.
to be able to reestablish our sense of humanity and
Uh-huh.
community, right? If things are, if things are going to get really nasty
Hmm.
and divisive as they have been in the past, plenty of countries in the U.S. for sure, um, we can we need to keep those connections alive, and in a
Yeah.
time of like digital divide, um
Yeah.
it's hopefully it doesn't become like a lost art. People still have it.
Right.
Let's go back in there and disconnect for a little bit
Yeah.
and do this in person, because people are willing. They might not be willing to listen to you, but you
Hmm.
can listen to them and show them the example. It starts with simple acts. Mm.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. So, I'd love to hear more like specific examples.
Mm.
So, your work has appeared in unexpected spaces, as you said. So, like from national parks to mountaintops. So, is there any like one powerful moment or conversation from these installments that has stayed with you that you'd like to share?
Well, there's one. I always think how difficult it is to like have all these personal experiences, but I got to be careful, like because of how I stereotype the person that was
Yeah.
involved in that event.
No, I
But
get that.
I yeah, there was a lovely group of I think there were young men Mennonites, I believe.
Uh-huh.
They're all checkered shirts and they had this incredible haircut and they just really stood out. And I had this. And I'm on the Grand Canyon at the rim. The national park got me like right there. I've got the view over the Grand Canyon, amphitheater, 200 spaces for people to sit down, and I got this very simple like museum stand in the middle, and
Okay.
it's got a glass case on the top, right? And inside I got an abstract statue of sorts. And they come
Okay.
up and they look at this statue, and they're like, "What's this, sir?" And I'm like, "Well, that right there, that's like a artistic representation of me, or of
Okay.
you, or of
Okay.
you, or of you." And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay." And I tell him I'm not actually interested in the statue. I'm interested in the glass case around it. It's a
Oh,
plexiglass because
okay.
it's got to be all safe because we're in the Grand Canyon and stuff.
Okay.
So and I'm like, I'm interested in the plexiglass because that right there is like our point of view, our worldview, our echo chamber. It's how we see the world. And when we're inside, it looks like our view is enormous, right? It's
Hmm.
actually a lot smaller than we think, right?
Okay.
And they're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Yeah. And then I have also like I have a jar and it has a little statue in it. It's a glass jar. And I say,
Okay.
look, this glass jar is also an echo chamber, right?
Oh, I love
And
that.
my question is like, how does this guy in here speak to this gal
Uh-huh.
in here? And how do you enter? Is it possible? Like what? And they're like thinking, and everybody at that point goes silent, usually at that
Okay.
moment. And they look down to the side and they're in that space, that peripheral space I was talking about, somewhere
Hmm.
else. Things are
Right.
happening because there's no direct. I'm coming up with questions, right? And there's no direct answer to it. Like,
Yeah.
should we try to enter other people's echo chambers? Should we
Yeah.
be communication with others? Do we have this box this guy is talking about? I mean, how big is mine? All these things were happening, and it really could see in these guys'
Uh-huh.
eyes that this was all happening. And it's in those moments of silence, which go really well with listening, right? It's
Yeah.
these
That's
long moments of
beautiful.
silence that things are happening, and I don't know what the outcome is,
Hmm.
um, but you can see that it's happening, right?
Okay.
And so things like that. And it's not because there were Mennonites, or because I see it with lots of different people when they ask on
Yeah.
that particular installation. It happens every time that people say, "What's this?" I
Mhm.
could say the same thing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, simple."
Yeah.
And that whole construction of that image, that you're not even seeing that, Denise, but you can
Uh-huh.
imagine what it looks like. That story, and your
Yeah.
listeners can imagine it too. Is like that story is the one that we take away, because we're like story people, right?
Right.
And that has strong meaning to it. So the story when you're picking up trash is also like, I've seen that person do that.
Mm.
That's cool. Maybe I should do the same. The story of like challenging our worldviews and stuff, and being
Right.
disrupting and stuff like that. That's a story too. And an invitation to communicate with strangers is a story as well. So we carry those, share it with others, and hopefully they'll do well, they do the same. I know they do, because I occasionally meet people that say, "Oh, wow, you're the guy
Mhm.
that does this." And I don't
So
even do any
cool.
social media stuff, which is like
That's
fully weird.
amazing. That's
Yeah, yeah.
no, that's really cool. No, because that's what
Mm,
actually a lot of people are telling me about. Because I talk about like, I don't know how to, get my podcast more out there. They're like, do TikTok. And I have a 10-year-old daughter. She told me,
okay.
if you do a TikTok dance for your podcast, you're gonna make so much money. I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to make a TikTok dance. But no, I feel like that's the to go though. So that's really incredible that you don't do social media and you have this kind of visibility though.
It's weird, but you can't measure it. It doesn't have the
Right.
metrics, right? Like how many
Yeah.
likes or hearts you got. I mean,
Yeah.
I did this video on that YouTube thing. I put a trash can on my head with some eyes on it. I started walking around,
Oh, that's so
and
cool.
I was like, I'm gonna do my stupid dance, and because I
Yeah.
was just it was so hard to do that 1 year Instagram thing. It was driving me nuts.
Okay.
Because I had like 365 days. When this thing ever gonna end?
Yeah.
This is like insane. Because actually, at the end, I didn't say like, after that 1 year on Instagram, it's so
Hmm.
weird. I didn't ask to have any artist friends or followers, but it
Right.
ended up being like thousands of just artists that I
Yeah.
didn't ask for,
Yeah.
which is so weird. Like it just built like that. It just knew exactly what to do to put everybody in that echo chamber. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think, yeah, in person, but you just have to let it go. It's like a detachment,
Yeah.
because you just don't know what is going to happen. and
Yeah.
uh and that's what you were talking about before, right? If you pick up
Hmm.
trash, you don't know, somebody's looking. Is it
Hmm.
worth picking up trash when nobody's looking? I mean, that's true
Yeah.
detachment, right?
Right. Right.
So when somebody shows up and there's no trash around, no cigarette butts or anything, they're less likely to throw anything down. They'll
No,
never know
that's
it was you,
true.
though.
No, that's true. No, that's really beautiful. And I feel like, so I've worked in the nonprofit sector for many years,
Mm.
pretty much all my professional career, but we talk about that a lot, that the work we do can often be like thankless though. Like we work really hard, but a lot of times people don't know, even notice it. If anything, sometimes people complain about what we do and we're like,
Oh,
okay.
no.
It's like we just got to keep doing what we think is right and how we're like trying to improve. But yeah, we don't even get thank yous sometimes.
It's thankless, except among each other. You
Right,
have
right.
it.
No,
You
for
just go,
sure, for
yeah.
sure, for sure.
That's the good part.
Yeah.
I do believe that this one, right? If
Uh-huh.
by talking to kindling broken relationships on a taboo subject like politics,
Right.
could have immediate rewards,
Yeah. Oh,
because that
definitely.
one you do like that. If that's okay with you, like having that reward is
Hmm.
reconnecting with that family member or friend,
Yeah.
not agreeing, and
Hmm.
not agreeing even to disagree, is
Right.
just acknowledging that I see you,
Yeah.
right? And do you see me?
Yeah.
And that's enough. I know it's all like sweet and honey or whatever, but
Yeah.
I wasn't like that before, and I'm totally seeing it as something real
Yeah.
and concrete that is blowing me away.
Yeah.
Because that was all, for me, it was all politics and anger, right? And we
Yeah.
got to, activism and get the word out, and the hell with everything else. There's only one way to go, and that hasn't changed positively, because there's still my political views haven't changed, but my view of others and
Yeah.
humanity is no longer others; it's more us, and we're in
Yeah.
this together. But we can't be each separate in different corners, in different rooms. Doors got to be open. We got to
Yeah.
see what's going on. We got to be able to walk in there. We got to be able to talk. They got to be able to come over and talk with us. And that's the hard part.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel comfortable.
No, totally. No, I love how you have that like
Mm.
awareness though of that shift that you've had of that's where you used to be, that's where you are now. But like I'm also curious to know like have you ever had any like interactions with other people that really surprised you? Like, they might have been really resistant at first, but then throughout the process you notice that they had like shifts or changes in the way that they're like perceive things or, approach things.
This is going to sound a bit weird, but like
Mm-hmm.
every interaction I have
Mm.
is like that because they
Yeah.
didn't expect me just to listen.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Okay.
There, I mean, it's like, oh, this is a lot easier than I thought, or I never
Yeah.
thought we could have a non-confrontational political questions. Who would have
Okay.
thought, right? Hey, I'll
Yeah.
try that out. I mean, it's so weird because it just it never seems to fail, and
No, that's
it's
really
quite
cool.
bizarre. Oh, but it's about the space too. Actually, it
Okay.
has failed. I'm gonna go back. It has failed. Like you,
Okay.
I've done busy city streets in Manhattan. When people got to go places, forget it.
Mm.
You got to choose your space correctly,
Yeah.
right? National parks is one thing, park, like a public park's another.
Yeah.
Possibly even in a long line at the supermarket, these things can happen with friends and coworkers, of course. But if people are on the walk going places, nah.
Yeah.
But I have tried protests as well.
Okay.
Those are good, yeah. So that can happen as well because they don't really know if you're left or right.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And have you like in those protests, have you like tried it out with like both sides of like
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
I
cool.
tried out on both sides. So I guess
Okay, no, that's
left
cool.
would be Democrats would call them protests. The other ones are called rallies.
Mm, okay. No, right. No, that's interesting. Just like the power of
Uh,
language though. Yeah.
right. This is how
Yeah.
of course, this is how you present yourself, and
Right.
what are your motives for this
Yeah.
as well. So it's about having a tool or a gimmick. And I hate to
Mm-hmm.
say this, like I got my gimmicks. My gimmicks are my artwork and my art installations. And there's probably the wrong word. Your tool, like you have a tool, right? You have the
Mm-hmm.
podcast tool. You're doing exactly that, right?
Yeah.
You're reaching out, and we all have different. We have to choose which tools we're most comfortable with, and that's once back to the story, right? We all can
Yeah.
tell stories, and we can all share stories. Somebody says, "Oh, the Grand Canyon. I went to the Grand Canyon. Oh, I heard about this guy that went to the Grand Canyon. You know, he did talk
Okay.
about politics, and that was weird. You can, non-confrontationally, what? And then you
Cool.
just take the conversation off to whatever." Because
Yeah.
we all have connections. They just have to have these connections of stories and events that happen with it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and that's where it's at.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I was wondering though, what barriers do you see most often when people attempt to connect across political, cultural, or social divides?
Well, that it can't work. That's the
Okay.
thing. Like they're saying, oh, this can't work. There's no
Yeah.
way we can reach out. It's too late. We're so divided. There's no, we'll never come together. We passed the Rubicon. Um, they're too far gone. They're crazy. They're un-American. I mean, um, but then you'd have this conversation. I'm always going to go back to it because it's the only thing I know, right? It's the only
Uh-huh.
thing I've tried out that's worked for me.
Right.
And I go back to the conversation, and things usually happen like, oh, but you're not like them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I invite them like, well, you know what? You have more conversations with them because them, that's me, right?
Yeah.
Go out and do it because you're going to
Yeah.
find a lot of things you got in common. Maybe not the facts and the opinions, but you're going to find humanity in them because they think the other ones are, often when people get extreme, the other person's like a demon.
Right. No.
Yeah. But often
Yeah.
they're just misinformed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they dug in so deeply into their beliefs that there's no pulling back because they'd be so compromised with friends and family and their social media group if they were to show any weakness because it's through the extremes that you can show your strength.
Yeah.
Apparently, I think your strength could be shown greater if you're more vulnerable and show your
Mhm.
vulnerability. Uh, or be more vulnerable. You don't have to show your vulnerability, but be more vulnerable in order to. It takes a lot out of you, but you get stronger with time. It's like exercise. suppose.
Yeah. No, that's
No.
cool. Well, what do you hope that your book will inspire, though? Like, what kind of a ripple effect do you feel that, or would you love to see just these conversations having, like, do you want to hope to see, like, these people that you've talked to, like, have positive interactions with, like, family that they disagree with? Or, yeah, what kind of ripple effect do you hope to see that your work will inspire with other people?
It's weird. I don't think too much about like it's just the little events that happen.
Yeah,
I
totally.
I was at a volunteer event. We were doing trail maintenance, and we spent several nights up there. And I have one of these books in which I drop off on public benches and stuff, and it's got the three non-confrontational political questions in. And I had dropped it off up in Utah, and these one of the people at that campfire had seen the book, and my
Yeah.
daughter was there to hear about. Oh, I know about this book. It's on the coffee table over at my friend's place, and we've had this conversation. And I hear little stories like that
Mm.
or I'm at the on the plaza at Santa Fe where I live, and I spoke to a few people, and they said, "Oh, I know, I've heard about this, and yes, I've had a conversation too. What are the questions again?" And
Yeah.
when I hear that out of the blue, hundreds of miles from where I am in another place, that's super rewarding.
Yeah.
But I'm just happy with that because it's such a groundwork
Yeah.
that I don't see anything. I guess I don't have that type of vision. If we
Yeah.
can all come, if we could, I mean, to me, it's the base of a strong foundation. So all of the actions of what you're doing, what I'm doing,
Mhm.
what a lot of the people doing, and your listeners hopefully will too in small little acts,
Yeah.
that creates a strong foundation and that doesn't break, right?
Yeah.
And that can't be manipulated or warped in any kind. And it includes a lot of different groups. And from there, we have a solid structure. And we are not powerless. We have a lot of power, and realizing
Yeah.
that and exercising that, um, that makes a big difference. And that I'm happy with. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. That's really
Yeah.
beautiful. And
I'm
yeah, I
getting
love,
passionate about this.
yeah, no, no,
Right
me
now, I'm like,
too. No, I love
I'm not too
having,
much. I'm
this
like getting really
conversation with
into
you.
it.
No, because
The
I'd love to just
outcomes.
hear, yeah, because I think, no, I totally hear you too. And I feel like I get the same way, like, just got to take it one day at a time. Like, because even with this podcast, I feel like we can really change the world one story at a
Yeah.
time. So I think sometimes if I look at it, the wider picture, it's like gets too overwhelming, but like how to, take it in like, just little bites, baby steps, one time,
Mm.
one day at a time. But I'd love to just see, like, hear what you have to say. But in your view, what does a more connected and just community look like? And what role do you think that art can play in bringing us there?
It's a realization of being present in the moment,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And being there for the other. It's one of the a beautiful. So we tend to see the prettiest view on our phones, the most
Hmm.
beautiful sunset, but it's right freaking there, looking at out the window. I
Yeah,
might have electrical poles and stuff, but just that one image, that moment in time, that's the beauty of it.
yeah,
Staying in that, being in that moment, and being there in that same manner for the rest of our communities,
yeah.
just to be present, and that's clear enough. And to me, art is everything. You're doing art. You're an artist. As far in my full
Oh, no,
my
thank you.
my perception, it's we are all artists,
Yeah.
and all artists are. It's all actions with intent are
Hmm.
are artistic actions, and is art. And it is well to me all art is political as well, from that same thing. So this just
Yeah.
weaves it as well when I do my abstract paintings as a profession. That it doesn't say anything uh,
Yeah.
overtly political with slogans or whatever, but it is my political act. Nonetheless, it has all my energy and everything in it, and that's how.
Yeah.
To me, it's all together. So there's no. We're all in it.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone out there. We're all artists.
No, that's a beautiful way to
That's the
say because
message.
yeah, I think we're surrounded
Mm.
by art all the time. I even when I look at sunsets or even just like the landscapes in front of me, like this is really just a painting. It's just we're surrounded by art all the time, and I think it's so beautiful. And even like sounds, like, they can create music and everything. So, I definitely agree with you too. Like art is everywhere. You just gotta have that eye for it.
And let's use our other senses too, right? Like smell and
Right,
taste and
right,
all that.
right.
We tend to forget those too. They're super powerful and make and allowing us to be more present in the moment too. And that
Yeah.
helps a lot in communication.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
thank you. I'd love to hear from you too about like something that I want people to walk away with this podcast is like tangible steps that they could take too. So we talked a little about this, but I'd love to hear some more. So many of our listeners want to build bridges in their own families, workplaces, or
Mm.
communities. So what would you say are some practical tools or practices that you recommend for facilitating honest and healing dialogue?
Hey, go back to. I'll just give you the steps that
Hmm.
I share with other people. I ask them three non-confrontational political questions.
Okay.
It's a taboo. Break the taboo. Have that conversation with a stranger. Practice with strangers before you practice with friends and family, because they're more precious to us in the long
Yeah.
end. We need a little bit of practice before we get there, and it's a lot less
Mhm.
intimidating, actually, in a sense, to do it with strangers.
Yeah.
In mostly, and what I do
No, I
is
agree.
ask them these three questions. I say, "How would you describe the political system of the United States of America?" And
Hmm.
just listen, be present, use all your senses, be in there. Don't judge, just be in there. Find something you have in common with them. Not a factor, just look for an emotion that they share. The second was describe your feelings or reactions to the current state of US politics. And there, look for some connection. You have a word, they're angry, you're angry, good. That's your connection, that's your bridge. The third one is kind of a game where you say, and they have to finish the sentence.
Okay.
Politics in the United States, blank, they finish the sentence.
Okay.
And at that point, they've really, without knowing it, they've really processed a lot of stuff. And then you ask them, give me one word that brings it all together. One word you want to put out there. And they'll come out. And that word's weird. It's going to be often different from all the anger and frustration that they expressed in those three questions. It's going to be usually one of hope.
Uh-huh.
Or it might have words of chaos and things or whatever, but they have a word that they put out there. They're going to take that word as part of their story building, and
Okay.
that's super powerful.
Yeah.
And you can take it in different ways. You can
Uh-huh.
take it different ways, but that right there, try that one. It's a simple one we can take with us all the time. There's no gimmicks or things you need to take with you. You just speak it out, sign it out if you need to, and that those, give it a go and just listen
Yeah.
in. And they won't ask you probably the same questions, but you've made not only an act of kindness, loving kindness, but also you probably also set up the steps of a community healing,
Uh-huh.
and they might share it too.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. No, that's really
Mm.
beautiful, a beautiful approach. And I was wondering too, like, what advice can you give to someone who like wants to speak up, but like, having hard conversations can be really hard sometimes. And I think it does take a lot of courage. And it's my growing point as well in my life because I used to be a lot more like conflict avoidant. But like, I
Mm.
think as I grew older, like learning the importance of using my voice because sometimes if I have that courage, I can inspire other people to also speak up when there's, even moments of like tension. So, yeah, what would you say to people where, they want to have these honest conversations, but it might feel scary for them because like going against someone who like feels differently and actually like confronting them and possibly having like a conflict with the person.
Yeah, well, try it out with somebody that you already know has the same views as you. Give it a
Oh,
go.
okay.
Practice a few times. Get it
Yeah,
out there. Think of it as a play, right? Think
I
of it
love
as
that.
you're an artist.
Uh-huh.
You're an actor, and you're going to go out there, and it's part of a play. And
Uh-huh.
and you gotta rehearse it a little bit.
I love that. No, I really love
Right?
that. No,
Mm.
that's a good way to see it. And I love how you brought that up to like start off with people that you're already comfortable talking with versus like,
Out of the
yeah,
blue.
talking to like a stranger.
He's got a MAGA hat. Let me go talk to him. Uh,
I know.
But that's where eventually you can get to. But you might wonder why. Well, why do I need to do that? And but we for show our humanity and who we are.
Yeah.
You're going to have some big surprises if you can reach out on an emotional, find the emotional commonalities that you have. That's bridge building.
Yeah.
You're not going to agree on the facts and opinion, but there might be one that you're like kind of agree on, and you can say, you know what, and then
Yeah.
show who you are, expose who you are.
Yeah.
You know, yeah,
No, I
yeah.
really love that.
Nothing's happened to me. So, yeah, and
Uh-huh.
I was about to say so far.
So hard.
That's not very
Yeah.
encouraging
No.
because I still, in the back of my mind, think sometimes, someday something might go wrong. But
Yeah.
nothing. I keep being surprised um, how amazing it is if you just listen. That
Yeah.
nothing happens.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really love that. And actually, going along with that too, just in your work that you've been doing, what have you learned about the human need to be seen and heard during these dialogues? Because I know
Mm,
that you've like learned it for yourself, just the importance of like
mm.
listening. But yeah, what do you feel like is just, like people just want to be heard? Like, what are your thoughts with that?
Right. So let's do it on the taboo. Everybody wants to tell their story, and they need somebody to listen. That's big. At least not in all cultures, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah. But right here now, we have a culture that demands a lot of bragging, a lot about themselves and their points of view, and they want somebody to listen. Let's just let them have that. Let's change the topic of the conversation though. Let's
Yeah.
let them talk about politics
Yeah.
and the one that you're not supposed to talk about.
Yeah.
And so because if it's not part of our cultural fabric to have these conversation with the opposition, then they're always going to be there's always going to be a divide.
Yeah.
Um, we can have these conversations.
Yeah.
We can do it.
No, I
It
love
doesn't seem
that.
natural. It's like oh, but they just can be fun and the funny stuff you're gonna hear too, and go, oh, you go
Yeah.
back to friends like, I can't believe what I heard today, and this and
Yeah.
that, and but in the end, I had this, and I was surprised too. And you know what? I'm having coffee with that person in 2
Yeah.
days, and people go, "What are you talking about? You said what? This person, this, all these things can happen." And yeah, just go with it, but
Okay.
practice.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Uh,
Yeah.
mm.
I love this too. And I love to hear like what gives you hope right now, despite the divisions that you see around us.
Well, it's what people say after
Okay.
that's that final word, after the three questions, is
Yeah.
that word often is contrary to, is one of hope,
Uh-huh.
regardless of where they are in the political spectrum. They have of they have a view of how things are, but they know how things could be,
Hmm.
and often it's a much brighter and community-driven view.
Yeah.
You might wonder what community they're talking about, but
Um,
maybe it's good for us to remind them that their community is much bigger than the glass box,
I love that.
right?
Yeah.
In the museum case I was talking about before, right? Yeah, there's going to be people coming in and out, and yeah, just for them to be aware that there's a bigger world out there.
Yeah.
I'm
No, I
making
really
people
love that.
sound dumb, right? But I think we're
No.
all pretty dumb.
No, but I think it's really,
Uh,
yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes people just follow things because I've had people that I love, dearly, but like it's just like we have political differences, but then the more I start to talk with them, it's like, no, actually it seems like we're pretty similar in our political ideologies. It's just that label of like left or right, conservative or, Democrat or, Republican, whatever. But like once we get past that, it's like, no, we actually seem more similar. And yeah, I feel like sometimes people just follow their party because that's what they've always been told to do.
right.
And then, yeah.
And you bring up an interesting point, like
Uh-huh.
about the words, right? It's
Yeah.
so when I was doing this Instagram thing, I could see also that uh, the there's a manufacturing of words and terminology that get changed that have new meanings for new people. So the left uses the word polarization and the right uses the word polarization. I mean, two different things.
Yeah.
Polarization is at one point was seen as a leftist a leftist mechanism to make the right look bad. I was
Hmm.
like, oh wow, that's interesting. Rather than that's redefining the meaning of it, rather than saying, okay, we're divided, maybe we should do something about it.
Oh,
But they're redefining the whole thing in political terms. So let's remember when we have these conversations that some of the words we use are going to trigger the other, and they use words that trigger us. Maybe we can discuss like, oh, you know what, that word triggered me. Is there
yeah.
anything that I said that triggered you?
Oh,
and
okay. No,
discuss that a little bit. That's always an interesting area to go into, but not like straight out with the person at the supermarket.
yeah.
When you built it up, and that's when you're having a cup of coffee. It's like, what you said the other day, I didn't realize it. It made me feel awkward because I don't quite see it that way. Is there any words that I said? Give the question back. Questions are powerful.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they are. I'm not a master communicator or anything. This is just from
No,
experience,
but
or
yeah,
I'm
no, I
reading
think you're
stuff.
you're creating so
Yeah.
much like important dialogue and conversations with people. And I had such a wonderful time talking with you. And just like
Mhm.
as we're wrapping up this conversation, are there any other words that you'd like to leave with our listeners? Like any other like questions that you'd like them to ask themselves or like reflection on their own lives or just like, where to go from here? Like I'd love to see, if there's anything else that you'd like to leave the listeners.
It's all about action. Just act. Little
Yeah.
acts. Little acts. Do little stuff.
Yeah.
Practice and act. That's
Yeah.
all. That's all there is to it. And be
Yeah.
present. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I added another one in.
Yeah. No, I love that though. But from those, I think you did mention this before, but like, what does like a more just and liberated world mean to you? Like when we start to all like act together, like do these little acts and, what do you hope to see?
This vision
Uh-huh.
of for there to be a more just world,
Yeah.
that we can build this. We can
Yeah.
definitely do it. All right. Yeah. For some, it's just an illusion, right? Or
Yeah.
just some construct in our minds, but we can certainly make that happen. And we already are. There's
Yeah.
so many things, positive things that are happening, that they're
Yeah.
being drowned out by a deluge of
Yeah.
negativity and disasters. But there's much we can do. There's a lot of progress still to be made,
Yeah.
but we can act when we think we're powerless, which is so
Yeah.
cool. Let's do it.
Yeah. No, I love that too. And I feel like sometimes I do feel like, Denise, what are you doing? I know people even say, like, you're being too optimistic, but it's like, no, but I truly believe that we can change the world. And I think that's why I wanted to do this podcast too, to show people, like, yeah, there's a lot of negativity out there. There's a lot, to tackle, but there's so many wonderful, beautiful, amazing individuals who are doing like wonderful work every day. And, I think if we just find each other, we can really be this solid force and, create the world that we want to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Okay.
totally possible. It feels like it's not, but it's there. It's just there's a
Yeah.
lot of veils being put in front of us. It's
Yeah.
right there. We can
Yeah.
make it happen.
No, I love
Yeah.
that. What
Yeah.
do you think it could take though to like take off that veil though? Because I think a lot of people do see that veil and just like maybe don't even realize that that veil is there.
Yeah. What's my echo chamber look like? Well,
Uh-huh.
let's go see somebody else's.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. But truly, thank you for your time. I, really loved being in conversation with you. But just lastly, how can people find you if they'd like to connect with you?
Well, the only place is certainly not on Instagram anymore, because if they go on
Okay.
there, the last post says the end.
Oh, really? You knew
Yeah, it
you were
does.
going to close it out?
Oh yeah, it's the
Okay,
last day.
that's
It was
cool.
called like the end with a
Okay,
super happy face.
that's cool.
Yeah, yeah, it says the end. But all of the projects are called under one banner. It's Triptych Dialogue, and
Okay.
that's written really weird. There's a whole story to go with that, but I'm not going to do that. It's
Hmm.
Triptych
Hmm.
Dialogue, Dialogue. My name's
Okay.
David Deighton. Put all that together, and it spits out my stuff.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. No, I truly hope that more people be inspired just to have like, these conversations that we need to have and just like
Mm.
create more unity with each other because I don't think it's a bad thing that we have our differences. It's just like, how do we not use those differences to tear each other down though?
You got it. That was it. Actually,
Yeah.
that sentence right there. That's all we need to do.
No, no, but thank you again. And I'm so grateful
Thank
to be
you.
connected with you. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Denise.
Okay.
Until next time.
Yeah, until next time. Bye. Thank you for being here and tuning in to Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community. Your presence in this movement matters. If today's conversation moved you, share it, talk about it, and keep the work going. Together, we're not just imagining change, we're making it. Until next time, stay bold, stay grounded, and stay in the fight.
time I feel so mad and sad and bad, I say to myself, relax, lean back.